Hi everyone, welcome to Envision Prototypes. I'm Nick. Today, I got some pretty serious stuff to talk about with you guys. And well, this subject, it raises different emotions in different people. If you ever worked on a project car, you might know what I'm talking about. Some guys, if they hear these three words, they'll break down into tears. Other guys, well, it'll scare their pants off. I'm talking about body panel gaps. What do you think I was talking about? In front of me here, I've got a 1970 Camaro that was ready for paint. The car's been to 2 different shops, and just what everybody's tried their hand at setting the gaps. And you can just imagine the fun we're going to have now. All the gaps have been massaged in such a way that they're not right. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. We're going to go for a little walk around the car. And one of the main complications was the fact that somebody changed the quarters on this car, and that snowballed into all the other panels not aligning properly. So what we're going to do is going to take all the panels off the car and start fresh, except for the rear quarters. We're not touching those. Leave them on the car. We'll massage them where we need to, but we'll massage them in such a way that we make the other panels work properly. Some of you guys that are working on a project car, you can take a few tips from this if you want, or if you're going to purchase a project car, it's some things to look out for. When you set panel gaps, you usually start from the quarters and you work your way forward. Well, if somebody's changed them and they're not spaced properly, that problem is going to reflect all the way through the other panels in the car. Okay, so we're going to start here at the front. And the most obvious thing here, when you walk up to the headlight, you can see this is an aftermarket panel. You can see how it dives in here to the original fender. And you can see there's quite a step there, about a 1/4 inch step. So that needs to be brought out. But that's the least of our concerns. If you look at that hood line there between the fender and the hood, it gets really tight as it gets to the back. And then it opens up here at the front. And then across the front, you see the gap here is almost 5/8 of an inch. So that needs to be corrected. And on the driver's side, we have a really tight gap and it opens up towards the back. So that means that the whole front clip, the front end needs to be turned to reposition things so that we can make those gaps more consistent. These lower valance panels, they don't fit too bad, but there's quite a step here between the aftermarket panel and the original panel. And that's why I always talk about aftermarket not being what they need to be. You know, somebody's done some massaging here and caved the metal in, so that has to be fixed. We need to also address between the fender and the door gap. We're tight at the top, and it really grows towards the bottom. And then the gap along the bottom of the car, or between the rocker and the door, is tight at the front, and it grows towards the back. So that gives us a small indication of what we need to do. And looking up here, this gap up here is really large. So when we get to the back, I'll explain what we got to do with the door. So this gap here, it's quite large. And then it becomes a consistent gap all the way down the bottom. Actually getting a little bit tighter. So we have to take this door and turn it clockwise. And that'll close the top up, make the cap along the bottom a little more consistent, and close in that gap over there. So that's the beginnings of what we need to do to rectify the fitment on the side. Now in regards to the quarter panel, the bottom here is flush to the back, but it sticks out almost 3/8 of an inch at the front here. And again, it wasn't welded in properly. So we need to fix that. But the problem is all the body work's been done everywhere else. Somebody's been sanding, block sanding, all that fun stuff. And well, we have to maybe undo some of that work. Going to the trunk lid here. This area is not too bad in terms of spacing, but the level of the trunk lid versus the quarter panel is way lower. I'm bumping into the quarter panel. So that needs to be addressed. We get to the passenger side here. The gap here at the top is pretty wide, and then it comes down to the bottom and it tightens up. You can see that this quarter panel is on outward this way. I'm not sure if you know what I mean, but the top here, this should have been welded in 1/8 of an inch or so inward, or the back kicked out a little bit. So we'll need to kind of massage that area to correct that. Coming up to the passenger side here, you see this huge gap here again at the top of the door versus the bottom. Get tighter. And then this quarter panel sticks out even more on this side than it does on the other side, so we need to fix that because it doesn't line up with the door down here. And the door gap gets really tight as you come towards the front there. So again, that means that the door has to be turned counterclockwise because the gap there at the top where the A-post comes in is again pretty sizable. Now if we look down the side of the car, you can see, it's kind of hard, but the door is actually drooping down and then the fender is going up, the fender line there. So that needs to be addressed by raising the door. And we come to the front again. We're going to pop the hood. There's a lot of tension on this latch. So essentially they've bent the hood. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got a bend through the middle there. And they've been blocking it, and the blocking, the sanding marks have indicated that the whole center has a kind of a peak to it. So that needs to be corrected. The other thing is there's a big cavity here. It's as if somebody pushed down with their hands, caved it in. This car is nowhere near ready for paint. All right, guys. Well, as you can see, we have our work cut out for us. I'm going to start by stripping off the front sheet metal, take the hood off, fenders off, front valance off, probably leave the core support. You don't have to touch that yet. I'm going to check the bushings and see how they're arranged. Leave the doors on the car, but what I want to do is probably open the doors so I can work on the quarter panel to rocker area. We want to make sure that we have a smooth transition from one to the next and not have any steps. Like that side there on the driver's side, the front edge is kicked out. We can't have that. This side here, it's kicked out all the way along the edge. And when you line it up with the door, it's actually out past the door. So we need to fix that. And then once that's fixed, we can start moving on to the doors, get them aligned vertically, so between the hinge and the post. And then once that's aligned, we can get the angle set right. And that's by loosening the bolts that bolt the hinge to the door itself. Get that set right. And then we can move on to the fenders and then get the hood and so on and so forth. All right, guys, well, we're moving ahead with this. It's looking a lot better than it did an hour ago. That quarter panel there, it was sticking out about a quarter-inch past the back edge of the door with the door all the way out. The top was kind of flush, but the bottom was way out. So what we did was basically massage that door jamb with dollies in such a way that we pulled the material inward without actually smacking the outside surface of the quarter panel. It was way out. Now we're only about a 1/16th out. For now, I'm happy with that. I'm not going to try to get that whole distance covered until we get this door tilted up and close this gap in here. This will close up, that'll close up at the top, and the bottom will open up because it kind of tapers to a tighter gap at the bottom. So I'll do that by loosening the hinge to the door post bolts, get those bolts loosened off a little bit, rotate the door up, and then we'll play with the twist of the door by working the bolts on the door itself. So it's a fine dance. If you start getting frustrated or you find yourself kind of overwhelmed, walk away for a bit, come back and try it again. And if you've done something that kind of messed up your progress going forward, just undo what you did, take another breath, and try it again. We might get the two doors all set, looking good towards the quarter panel, try to get the fenders on, and then the gap up here might change a bit. I'm not sure yet because, well, so many people have been tackling this, this project here. All right, let's loosen off these bolts. Hopefully they're not stripped. A lot of times you come across them and somebody's over-torqued them. Okay. Now the door might actually settle down a little bit. So the gap is now really closed up at the bottom. We need to pick the door up. There we go. Much better now. See, that's what I was looking for. The thing is, by moving this up here, the whole door is slid back. So now with this up, we need to pull the door forward. Gap isn't looking too bad. Okay. Door will probably fall down again, just like that. Loosen these off. All right. Now I'm going to get a spacer back in here so that when I lift the door again, it doesn't slide back. Okay, it's a much better gap there. Still want to come up a little bit more. Sometimes it helps to use a jack underneath your bar if you're lifting. In this case, it's not bad, so I'm just going to let that go. And it stayed put. So that's looking a heck of a lot better. We went from 3/4 of an inch to about 5/16. Okay. Leave it like that for now. Take and pull out our spacer back here. And that gap back here is much nicer. So you can see our gap here at the top is closed up and it's much tighter now. It's actually consistent all the way down until we get to the bottom. And you see the quarter panel is still sticking out just a bit past the door. It's got a twist to it. So I still need to take and work that inward. And I'll show you how I do that. This is where I put the dolly into this crease here. And then by hammering that inward, that sucks the outside surface in. These are aftermarket panels that have been stamped, and who knows how the stampings were created, how much wear they have. And it might not be as tight as a factory bend here. So what we're doing is tightening up this radius in here and sucking that whole thing in. Now I'm not wailing on this to smash it in. I'm just gently massaging it inward in such a way that we're not creating any hammer marks, just slowly bringing that outside surface in. There's a few of those little taps, I should say, taps. We pulled this in. So we'll probably get a spoon on this and just bring that outside surface in a bit, but this is much better in here now. Okay, we're much closer. I'm just going to use a spoon on the outside and bring that in. feeling really nice. And the surface from one to the other, that's in transition from one surface to the next, that's improved drastically now. So we are just about where we need to be. All right, well that gap is a lot nicer through here. What I'm going to do is take some 80 grit and just pass it across the panels to show us if we have anything else funny going on. You can see there's some highs and lows within the primer. The wider areas, that's the high, and then the dark area is the low. And on these production cars, a lot of times the doors did dive in, but we're going to do our best to bring that outward, bring the flange outward so that we have a smooth transition. So we're high there, low there, and it's a production stamping, so there's not much we can do in terms of bringing that out. We can shrink this down and kind of help this dish in here. That's it. We're right where we need to be. There's a little bit of primer showing up here yet. And I want to check the feature line here. There we go. We are really close. So the door is a little bit high right now. The other thing you guys have to remember is that once you install all the power window mechanisms or the window mechanisms in the glass, that's going to add weight to your door. Right now this door is empty. And what I should do, and what I will do, is we're going to add some weight into the door. I got some iron, and we're going to put that inside the door just to weigh it down and give it a bit of sag. Because right now they're light. You don't want to set all the gaps, put all the window mechanisms in, and then have it sag. This feature is, I'd say, a 1/16 of an inch higher than the quarter panel feature based on all the work we did. So that extra bit of work that we do, or weight that we add to the door, should bring that into alignment. And there we are. Just by hanging on this door, maybe 25 pounds worth of weight, brought that down. So that's good. Let's move on to the other side, guys. We're onto the passenger side door here now. And I'm going to pretty much do everything I did on the driver's side. We need to suck the bottom of this quarter panel in towards the rocker just a bit more than on the driver's side. On the driver's side, the front edge was sticking out. Here we have the whole bottom edge sticking out, which sticks out past the door, and it doesn't look good. Hardwood here. You can see the bottom edge of that quarter panel is sticking out past the door, and yet here we're just about actually the quarter panel's in more at this point. Flush, and it's flush up here. So we need to work this area of the rocker, of the quarter panel, I should say, in towards the rocker. And the other thing we're going to do is take this door, loosen these front hinges, raise it up, close that gap in right there. That's much better now. What I'm doing right now is bringing this outer lip out so that we bring that surface upward to meet the quarter panel. See, feel a bit hammering on this. I can feel all the work in here that somebody's done. It's just, when somebody doesn't know what they're doing, thought they knew what they were doing, and didn't do what they need to do, it turns into a mess afterwards. Okay, I'm pleased with the way that's come out. Right now I'm going to go to the front and raise the front of the door up. Put the block in here again like we did last time. You can't be using pine or balsa wood or anything. You need to use a piece of hardwood, a piece of oak. Alrighty, let's get the bar in here. You guys see the gap here? This door is diving down at the front. We can gain a good 1/4 inch there and bring that up. I'm gonna block this up. Get my bar in here. There we go. Okay, now we're going to pull this door ahead. I've got this wide cold chisel. I'm going to slide it into the back there, move everything forward. Got a special, or not special, but it's a 3/16 spacer that was been created that I use to slide into the door gap here, just to check for consistency. And you see, we can come up a little bit more at the top. This is perfect down here. We have just enough stiction with this piece of spacer that I have. So that's nice there. Let's pick the front up just a bit more and reef it up. There we go. Don't need much. We have a nice gap here at the top now. Okay, we've got our 1/4 inch space up here. Take out this hardwood spacer. There we go. Now, I did slide back a little bit. So we're less than 3/16, and that's one of the things. If you gap your doors too tight, by the time you finish with all the primer, paint, clear coat, all that stuff, you're going to add thickness. And then the first time you close your doors, bang, you chip it off. So go back to the front and open up that gap again. You see on the holes, we slid ahead about 1/8 of an inch. That's sitting a lot nicer now. That's good. Let's get our little spacer. 3/16 there. A little tighter there. Now we are ahead on the bolts as much as we can. Next step would be to take the hinges off, Dremel them out, and move the door ahead. This 1/4 panel is a bit too far forward on the car right now. So, and then the other thing is somebody's beat this down here. So that's another reason why the gap here is tighter. So I'm going to do 2 things before we start dremeling those hinges. I'm going to take and open this door jamb up here, push it back a bit. Oh yeah, that's like butter now. Now our door feature is up a 1/16 just like on the other side. So when we weigh the door down with the glass and the window mechanisms, it'll settle into the right place. The gap up here is a little bit bigger than I'd like. We might add to the door. We'll see how that goes. This 1/4 panel was changed up into here. So I'm thinking it's the 1/4 panel that's been stamped a bit off. Get our 3/16 spacer. A little snug at the bottom. That's good there. It's not too bad. Let's try a little something here. There we go. And that's what I was after right there. This area was lower than the door, so by moving this back, this joint back on the quarter, we basically created more material here, raised it up. Now it's flush with the door all the way through. I don't know if you guys can see it on the camera, probably not, but it's bang on straight right through. And we've got a nice gap here at the front, 1/4 inch. That's right on right there. All right, guys. We're touching metal here, and we're touching metal there. A little bit of a low spot here on the very edge. We'll take and adjust that in a second, and then that'll smooth right out. But see my scratch marks up and through here, as well as on the quarter. Now, if you're doing a finished car, you obviously couldn't do this. I mentioned earlier that this car was ready to paint, and you can see by all the extra work we did how far away from paint it was. We had to correct all these cut lines, get all the spacing right, and that all has to be done before high build primer and block sanding ever takes place on a car. Now we move on to the fenders.